genre.
Godzilla in Geek By Night? What is this, a crossover episode of my favorite IPs? Welcome to Beyond Geek By Night, where we go behind the scenes of the Geek By Night podcast. On today's show, we'll be discussing the 39th episode, Making It Weird. So go lay a chocolate egg, which is canonically something that the Easter Bunny does, because we're about to go beyond Geek By Night. I'm your host, Matt Bennett. I'm joined today, as always, by writer and creator Scott Carelli.
Hello.
Geek By Night composer and voice of Max Carmichael, Scott Tofte.
Hello.
And the voice of Mindy, the always wonderful Morgan Spencer.
Hi.
Hey, everybody. So,
Hi.
In episode 39, Making It Weird, it centers around an energy wave sweeping through McKinney City, bizarrely transforming the main characters. Charlie becomes a unicorn. Mindy is a Disney princess. Joel is a British rock star. Simon is a Dracula, among many other weird transformations. They grapple with their new forms while trying to rescue Lorelei. Meanwhile, in Simon's lab, his group attempts to reverse the effects. The climax involves a plan to infiltrate the Nakajima building, which has now transformed into Godzilla. Mindy uses a stunning musical number to lure Godzilla, and while the agents and Last Man join the fray, Joel enters Godzilla's mouth. So, question number one is for Scott. Knowing that I am a huge Godzilla fan, I have to ask, do you think that it's fair to the other listeners of Geek By Night to write an episode that is specifically catered just for me?
Absolutely not. It was not fair at all, but I did it anyway. We did it anyway.
But seriously, how did you guys at the writer's room come up with all of these hilarious transformations?
We made ourselves laugh like a lot and tried to think of the most ridiculous combinations of characters and what would be the funniest for each individual character, what is like in some cases the most opposite, like Mindy, or in some cases a gag like the Easter Bunny and the chocolate egg, which was a joke that I wrote into the episode and disgusted Cass and Nick so much, and I refused to cut it, and I just made it worse with the sound effects that I chose.
I want to say, as an actor, thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
It was great.
Yeah, no, I mean, this was, I wanted to do an episode that was absolutely batshit insane. And I knew that I'd wanted to do that. I wanted to do like a really wacky episode. And there was another version of what this was, which I can't talk about right now because it's relevant to the next two episodes, which was like a change of plans and things. One of the episodes that we threw out that I discussed in last Beyond Geek By Night. But once we figured out that, Nathan was sort of in charge of this reality, and the last time that he was in charge of an episode, we had Ghost Story, which was like a big, crazy episode. Where we started our discussion of this was just like, well, how do we escalate from, a ghost attack on McKinney City? How can we escalate from that? And this is what we came up with. And I think it's pretty wacky. And I think that everyone did a killer job doing this. And the song itself, that was something that sort of grew organically out of what we had sort of established, which was like just the gag that like woodland creatures are like attracted to Mindy when she like just randomly sings as a Disney princess. And then we were like, wait, if we need to bring Godzilla to us and he's an animal, we have to, this is going to be a song. There's going to be a whole song.
I was going to ask because I was always curious if the idea of like, we have to do like a musical kind of episode came first, or if it grew out of the script itself. So
it had always been it had always been a wish list item, right? we had long talked about maybe doing an episode where, like, back when we used to have like freak of the week stories, or lack of a better term, we thought of like an episodic villain who their power was that they made everybody turn into a musical around them. And we thought about doing that at one point, and it just never fit organically into the story that we were telling. And it wasn't until this that we thought of it. And Tofte will talk a lot more about this, but based on how difficult this was, I'm glad we never did a full-blown musical episode.
Yes.
Because the one song was so difficult. We started this episode, I think we had a first cut of the song 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. It's been a really, really long time, and it's just been sort of iterating on that original version just over and over and over. And it just got more. We spent, like, I would say our entire budget on the season. We spent the most on this episode.
You're welcome.
Yeah, because we actually brought in legit studio musicians to record all of the music for this song. Again, a process that I'm sure Tofte will go into more detail about, because he knows what he's talking about with that stuff much more than I do. I just know that it sounds great. But we wanted to write a song because Mindy has a lot going on, more than any other character. I think she has a lot more going on underneath the surface of, like, things that she's been dealing with that she hasn't really talked to anybody about. And we were like, if there was going to be, like, this is kind of perfect because it allows her to get a lot of stuff out in the open that she hasn't really talked about yet. And so, we came up with this whole concept of a song and wrote all the lyrics, and then we just sort of handed the lyrics over to Tofte, and then he took it from there. But yeah, overall, I mean, this was just a wacky episode, and it turned out exactly the way I had always hoped a really insane, wacky episode of Geek by Night would be. So I'm very thrilled with how this turned out, both the song and the episode itself.
So before we get to the music and the vocals of Making It Weird, I want to hear a little bit about the lyrics. Like, was it hard writing the lyrics to the first original Geek by Night song, or was it something that was pretty easy once you had the idea all figured out?
I mean, it was a thing where we had the basic concept, and we knew that, like, it was going to be called Making It Weird because Mindy's worried about making things weird in the friend group, while also, like, everything is so weird right now because of Nathan. And so, like, the double meaning of that. So we knew that was going to be, like, kind of the hook of the song was going to be, the phrase Making It Weird. And we built it out of that. If I remember correctly, it was, I believe when we were writing this, Nick was out of town or was very, very busy. And so he did, like, an initial draft of it by himself. And then Cass and I sort of used that as a basis and then sort of wrote the whole thing together, and then handed it back to Nick, who, like, punched it up. And then once we had the lyrics that we were happy with, we sent that to Tofte, and then Tofte, as he started laying music on it, tweaked the lyrics again just to, like, fit, like, timing and structure and all of that stuff.
Which I don't think I did very much of. I seem to recall pretty much using almost exactly what you gave me. Maybe one or two, like, number of syllable counts had to change, but it was pretty close.
Yeah. No, I mean, and we were it was like Cass and I on a Zoom call, just, like, going da da da, like, counting with our fingers, like, to make sure that, like, everything was lining up right. And we had a tune in our head, and the song didn't end up being that tune in our head, but Tofte's song is way better, so it all turned out fantastic. I'm so happy with that.
So Tofte, I want to hear from you next. You were just kind of handed lyrics to this song. I'm curious to know before we dive in, like, is that a starting point that you've had before in writing music, or is it usually the other way around?
I don't typically write music for other people's lyrics. When I write, I mean, my songwriting, when it comes down to songwriting, not the scoring itself, but actual, like, songwriting, is typically I'm either writing myself lyrics and music kind of together at the same time, or I start with a set of lyrics that I'm, I am able to mush around and change because they're mine. Or I've worked with a couple of partners in the past who, I'll write something and be like, I need a bridge. Can you put a bridge in here? Here's the music, and you do this. But being given a like, these are the words, make this a song, is not something I've done a lot of. So it was, that aspect of it was pretty interesting. And I didn't want to change too much of what was there, just because number one, what they gave me rhythmically, like it was a poem. They gave me a wonderful poem that had a sense of meter and rhythm and rhyme, so it didn't need to be changed. And I think the song I wrote ended up being, a generic enough Broadway pop song that it like, you could have put any set of lyrics into it, as long as they had good rhythm and meter and rhyme. So they gave me good lyrics with rhythm and meter and rhyme. It was funny as hell too. And I tried to keep the structure of the song simple enough that it wasn't, I didn't have to shoehorn anything in or, cut up the lyrics or anything like that.
So from that point, Scott mentioned that you had studio musicians and things like that. Tell me about the recording process.
So from what I recall, sorry about that. And Carelli, correct me if I'm wrong, because this was about 2 years ago and my memory is garbage as it is anyway. Scott's like, hey, we're going to do a musical number in this episode. We're going to give you lyrics. And oh, by the way, we have a budget. And I was like, a what now? We have a what? He's like, I want to do this. We're like, right. We want this to be done. Really, don't tell anybody. This is super on the down low. The cast doesn't even know that we're doing this yet. But we want to write this song and we want to actually like fully produce it with musicians. Here's your budget. What can you do? And I was
just to interject for a second, to be clear, Morgan knew because I had to ask her if she was willing to sing a song in an episode, but no one else knew, just Morgan.
Right. So from there, the process was like, I just sat down. I think I sat down. I don't even remember what I wrote this on, probably on like a keyboard during a prep period at my teaching job or something, like a piano. I can't imagine I wrote this on a guitar. I don't think I did. I think I wrote it on piano, which is not my main instrument at all. So I started writing this song and I was kind of like in my head, I was hearing it as like something from like Wicked or like a more contemporary Broadway musical. I wasn't going to go like 42nd Street with this. I wasn't going to do something like Sondheim or Into the Woods. It was going to be something a little bit more just sort of like straight ahead, really easy to listen to, pop Broadway. So it came out fairly quickly. Like it's one of those instances where I heard the making it weird in my head and I put my hands on a D major chord and just sort of, ran the arpeggio on the D major chord and was like, oh, there's my melody. And then from there it was, fairly simple chord progression and just getting the bones of the song down was not terribly difficult. I think I recorded a demo in Logic Pro on the computer and started picking like what kind of instruments do I want. I don't think I ever put a guitar track on it. I think it, the instrumentation that you hear, I had like synth instrument versions of all that stuff to start with. And I think when I sent it back to Carelli, I don't remember what the response was, but I'm sure it was akin to like, oh my God. I think the response was like pretty much like, oh my God, this is it.
Yeah.
And it was me singing, and it was me singing in the key that the song is in, which is I'm like, oh, we're going to have to change this for Morgan. And I don't think we ever did. I think you sang it in that key, which was awesome because that would have been way more work from me. I don't even know. I'm not sure, Morgan, maybe you can help me out. I don't know if the first version you heard was the demo, or I can't imagine I would have gone through and gotten the session musicians before you sang it.
No, it was the demo with you singing.
Okay.
Yeah, and then she sang over the synth version, and that's the version that we played in the table read for everyone.
Right.
Which no one was expecting in the table read that we would have the song ready to go.
And didn't we recorded really cool. A video. So cool. We made like a music video of Morgan because it was a Zoom call.
Yeah.
So it's like Morgan like we cut to this pre-recorded Zoom video of Morgan singing this song and threw it up. Everyone's like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
But yeah, and then from there it was, the fun thing. So I'm gonna, I want to real quick just mention the people that I got to play on this. I ended up playing. I went down to my buddy Sonny's studio here in Brooklyn. I recorded the drum part, so that's me on the drums. I ended up playing piano. I actually went to my old high school band room and recorded the piano in my old high school band room while I was shooting the shit with my old band teacher. Any of the synthesizer stuff on there is me. The French horns, I don't remember how I found this person. I think it was a friend of a friend. This person, Alex Ozolins, played French horn. My buddy John LaJoy ended up playing all the trumpet parts on there. A good friend and a good songwriter buddy of mine, Michael Hunter, played the violins. And a colleague from when I was in college, Alex Svensson, who's like a professional orchestral upright bassist in like the Hartford Symphony Orchestra, ended up doing all those like double bass, that long like bowed double bass stuff. So as I was getting these tracks in from people, I was just like, my mind was exploding. I think the first ones I got back were the bass tracks, and I was just like, oh my god, I never get to use live strings on stuff. So getting live double bass from like the bassist from the Hartford Symphony, from the Vermont Symphony, or like this guy's like, this is what he does, right? Like he spends 8 hours a day playing bass classically. Sounded amazing. The violins came in next, and I'm like, oh, this stuff works. Like I'm like, oh my god, this orchestration is working. I couldn't believe it. My piano playing didn't even suck, and it usually does. Like I was like, all right, go me, that fits. Everything sounded great. Trumpets, the French horn parts especially. I never ever do French horn in anything. When in a pop song do you add French? Who am I, Paul McCartney? No, like, but the French horns came in. I was like, that's the sound. It was so good. And I, being the nerd I am just sitting there in the session mixing and remixing for like months, just because I like playing with all the knobs and like turning things up and like hearing different parts of it. And so we finally got a version of this locked, and we ended up doing a session with Morgan and like kind of working her through the song. And then I think you ended up singing your parts. You gave me like 3 or 4 takes, and then we just comped it together, and it sounded great. Like what you sent for vocals was dead on. Very little had to be done to it.
Yeah. Before she digs in, because I really want to hear from Morgan, because this is a big thing, but I just want to compliment her, because one of the things that I told her, which was going to be a key, because I think in the demo there wasn't, because she was just learning the song, there wasn't a lot of acting going on in the song, because she was just learning it and learning the lyrics and whatever. And I told her, like, I want this to feel like a Broadway song. I want there to be a lot of acting throughout, and find little moments to like speak through some stuff and whatever. And that's kind of, and we walked through it, and, I directed her the best I could, but like I couldn't be there when she was recording these things. And when I heard the final mix, when Tofte sent me the final mix of the song, which really wasn't that long ago, it took a long time. But when I finally heard it, I was just like, I'm not kidding. I was just like crying because I was like, this is everything. It had taken so long to get to this point. And it was so perfect and exactly what I had always imagined. And Morgan's performance is so friggin' good in this song that I was just blown away and was just like weeping. It
was literally about a week before I finished the final mix and score on the episode. I think that I sent you it was like that recent.
Yeah. And it just completely blew me away. And just Morgan sounds amazing, and obviously the music sounds amazing. And I'm very, very grateful at how it was a long road, but I think it all turned out worth it, because this was amazing. This was the episode, I would say, that is the reason why we're just premiering now. Because it took a really long time to get this in the bag.
That's what you get when you work with me. Everything takes a really long time, but it turns out okay.
But yeah, what was this whole process like for you, Morgan?
First of all, I don't even know what to say, because I'm trying to accept all of the like because it's hard not to feel like cringe about, for me, like hearing myself Like, I didn't even want to listen to the episode right away. I was like, I don't want to listen to it. I don't want to hear how it sounds. Because also, yeah, I recorded this like forever ago. I remember where I was when Scott messaged me and he was like, do you want to sing like a Disney princess Broadway type whatever song for Geek by Night? And I was like, oh my God, what a dream come true, literally. But also, can I do it? I'm a Broadway nerd for sure, but I wouldn't say that I'm like musically gifted. Like, anybody can learn anything, but I don't know. I was very nervous to do this. So thank you for thinking that it was good.
Also, just to point out like how long of a process this was, when I asked her, and I think even when we did the table read with that demo, I don't even think you were pregnant yet, and now you're a mother. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a long road.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like just voice acting in general has been such a evolution for me. Like, I look at where I started with Geek by Night and like where I came and how much I see that I've improved. Doing that song was nerve-wracking as hell. Like, I was scared to do that. But when I finally did it and then heard it 2 years later,
you also had to engineer your own session too from remotely. Like, it's not like we could sit you in a studio and we were all in a room together and we could give like you did that. You engineered your session. You made sure it sounded good. You performed it. Like, kudos. You did a lot on that one.
But Tofte, you made sure I sounded good in the end.
In the end?
Put it all together and made it pretty. I don't know. I mean, I feel really lucky that I got to be the one, that Mindy was the character, like, I feel like I don't deserve that, but I do. It was really bad. I feel so fortunate that I got to be able to sing that song, and it's hilarious that Mindy of all people, like you said, Scott, Mindy of all people, she's the one who sang the song, like confessing her love for Simon and just all of her feelings. I don't know. What a whirlwind. This was definitely the coolest episode ever. Ever, ever, ever.
Let's talk about Mindy for a bit, Morgan, because, we're getting to the end of the series here. We've only got...
No, don't say that.
Well, we've still got, like, a lot... In terms of runtime, we have a lot more Geek by Night left. In terms of
and
episodes...
then in 10 years, there's the inevitable reboot.
Of course.
Right.
Yes. We have to have our Secret Wars and everything. But Morgan, you've been playing Mindy for 7 or 8 years now or so, over 40 plus episodes. And how do you feel about the series coming to an end, and specifically, how do you feel about Mindy's arc? We don't want to give away any spoilers beyond this episode, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on where Mindy is now and how you feel about that.
I could like cry thinking about this ending, because it has truly been like one of the greatest things in my life. I've never done any voice acting before this or outside of this. So I don't know. This is like it for me, I mean, hopefully I can do more after this, definitely, because I do love it. I resonate with Mindy so much, and I feel like how she has developed in all of her character arcs, like, I feel all of that. How I have grown as a person and developed. I mean, anytime I tell people about Geek by Night, I'm like, if you could have any superpower, what would it be? And they like tell me, and I'm like, yeah, I would have the one I already have. So like, she's the coolest. I think she's the shit. I think her power is the best. Like, I feel so confident in who she is as a character. I just like love to embody that. And anytime that I record, which it's really hard to like get myself to record, just to like set that time aside with how hectic my life seems to get. But anytime like I sit down to record, I'm like, why didn't I do this sooner? Like, I'm so happy. Like, I truly feel like happiness. And that's acting for me, just in general. During, after, you're like, oh yeah, this is what it feels like to like feel content and happy, and like I'm creating something. And I just can't believe that like Scott's my friend and that he asked me to do this and that he's like so incredibly talented. Like every script that I've ever read, I'm like, what the fuck? Like I get to do this? I get to do this. I get to record this. No way. I just feel lucky. I don't know. And I think one of my favorite parts about Mindy is like seeing her grow, but also like her and Simon and their whole arc, like, mwah, just incredible. That's so fun too.
Is this thing on? Oh, the red light means it's working. Well, red usually is associated with something bad, so you can understand my confusion. Well, in any event, salutations, underdog compatriots. It is I, the lovable and fully redeemed breakout character Max Carmichael. I'm interrupting this self-congratulatory bit of bonus content with an important update. If you were one of the countless millions who listened to our latest episode and thought, well, gosh, I just love this incredibly catchy original song. If only I didn't have to trek through the minds of this blasted narrative every time I wanted to listen to Mindy Gibson humiliate herself again and again. Then boy, do I have good news for you. Because the chart-smashing hit song of our hearts, Making It Weird, is available for purchase right now at geekbynight.com/weird. Think of it. Complete ownership and control over an entire MP3 file, free to download and copy as your heart desires, and all for the astonishingly meager yet wonderfully story-relevant price of $1. But seriously, please consider buying the single. Streaming has gutted the pockets of the humble working-class musician to a state I fear we can never recover from. That's why I put all my money in comic book stores. But you should buy the Making It Weird digital single from geekbynight.com/weird. Go ahead, right now. I'll wait. I trust you've done it? Good! Enjoy. And now, back to the glorious bonus content.
Tofte, I want to ask kind of the same question to you. You know, you're saying goodbye to Max Carmichael, who you have played for a very long time, much longer than just the beginning of this iteration of Geek by Night. You know, how do you feel about where Max is right now? How do you feel about saying goodbye to this character in a couple more episodes? Where
17 years, Tofte.
Yeah.
17 years.
That's
Wow. That's crazy. So I'll start with the Max bit, but there's a bigger bit about Geek by Night in general here that I'll talk about too. But I've always, in the back of my mind, you know, even in the old show, you know, in Mark 1 or whatever we call it, there is always a bit of me that's like, Max is gonna end up a good guy in all this somehow. Like it's gotta he's far too likable of a dumb schmuck to like let him stay evil. Like he's gotta be Spike eventually, right? Like he's gotta be like, there's something has to turn where like the intention has to be more good, but he's still kind of I'm so happy that it did happen. I was a little worried for a while that it wasn't going to. But I'm happy that he's where he's at right now and trying, for lack of a better term, to like figure out if he's gonna end up being more of, you know, an ally, or, you know, if it's not gonna be his path. Like the figuring out his place in all of it has been really fun. I am not an actor. I've never trained as an actor. I've never done theater. I've never done I'm a hack all the way through this. But Max's stuff is just so like scenery chewy, like just good over dramatic stuff. I don't know that I'm bringing anything unique to it, but the character is so much fun to play. Like I feel like I don't know how much I'm bringing to the character, but that character is so fully formed and so much, it just jumps off the page anyway. It's going to be really tough to let that go, to think that I'm not going to get to be Max anymore or have any more of these adventures or see, you know, where the story goes beyond where it ends up at the end of this run. And to the bigger point, you know, I've been doing Geek by Night since like the 3rd episode of the original series. I was involved with Geek by Night when that went off the air and Carelli wanted to try to turn it into a comic book,
Mm-hmm.
or like then there was like the idea of like maybe it was going to end up as like a TV. Like there was all these things like with trying to get it off the ground in the interim, and I was always fortunate enough that he always came to me and asked me to be part of it in some way or another. So this is a huge chunk of my life, and then we launched the new one, and I became the musical composer for it, which was not a thing in the first run of the show. It has taken a large amount of my time, which Scott will tell you is not always the easiest thing to deal with, but I'm always happy to do it. And it's going to be weird to think that I don't owe him something when this is finished. So right now I still owe him a lot of work, but when that day comes where he's like, all right, that's it, you're done, your obligation has been lifted, I'm going to be like, what? I don't know what to do with myself now. I'm going to miss it. It's a great show. It's been a great thing to be a part of for almost 20 years. Good God.
So there's going to be like a spinoff, right? Like it's not actually, right?
I mean, I'd be down. I can't say no to him. None of us can say no to Scott Carelli. That's his superpower.
Really
Geek By Night babies.
Just pitch everyone much higher. Yeah, we'll do it. I'm down. I'm there. 1 episode per year. We can handle that. Christmas specials only.
Yes.
What fond memories do you have in terms of scoring Geek by Night? The music plays such a big role in giving the show its personality and its tone. And there's been so many different tracks used in across these 40 plus episodes.
I mean, there's the handful. Like when I first came up with that underdog battle hymn, to me that was like, oh my God, that feels great. Like when I first started, like that first episode of this series, there was a lot of like electric guitar involved, and we kind of shifted away from that sort of vibe really quickly.
Well, even before that, your first pass on the first episode was totally sitcom-y, because that's what we did. In the original show, there was no composer, but there was me with a guitar app on a Nintendo DS, and I would play little guitar riffs and record them, and those would be like little transitional pieces, and that was it. And so he was like, oh, I guess that's what Geek by Night sounds like, so that's what I'll do a riff on that, only better and not on a Nintendo DS. And then I was like, oh, that's not really I want more of a Buffy vibe than like a sitcom vibe. And then it was like the guitar stuff, and then we went into like all of the synth stuff that became sort of like the sound of the show.
Yeah. So there's a few like, listen, I'm not gonna lie. Some of the music that I've composed has been like very like it's textural, and like it's I got to fill a 4-minute scene. Like, what can you do for 4 minutes that's gonna, it's not all great, but some of the stuff has been really fun to work on. The underdog battle hymn, the Max and Billy, the Monopoly Comics theme is great. The Lorelei theme is one of my favorites in the whole thing.
You're also killing it with the Last Man's theme, which is just
synthesizers galore.
Oh my God, it just blew all of us away the first time we heard it. We were like, oh my God, this is amazing.
So moody, yeah.
Yeah. It's been a trip, because I feel like it's been so long between seasons that like sometimes I feel like this season sounds nothing like last season from a scoring standpoint, because my head is in a completely different space than it was. Season 2, I was in it, and it was like just cranking them out as fast as I could. And then there was this huge break between the end of season. I get 2. What is this, season 3? Are we in season 3? I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever we call it. Yeah. But like my approach sort of changes until I get a few episodes in. Then I'm like, oh yeah. And then it's looking back through the library and seeing what I have. I recently just put all the old scores back up online again for people to get. I'll do the same thing with this one, as well as a single mix of Making It Weird, which I don't know, might end up on like Spotify at some point if Carelli gives the okay.
Yeah,
we'll see. But yeah, it's been really fun. It's hard trying to find what a character's like theme or what the vibe of a scene should sound like. But when I get something I think works, it's awesome. And then when Carelli gives the feedback of like, that's perfect, or you nailed it, or like, again, that, oh my God, this is like whatever. Like when he likes it, that makes it that much better. there has been times when I've sent him like a full episode and he's like, not quite. And I'm like, shit. All right, give me another 2 weeks. I'll fix it for you. But that doesn't happen that often.
Mm-mm.
So beyond just the music in the show and the scoring of the show, the sound design of the show has evolved a lot. And I'm curious, Scott, this episode is so dense in terms of sound design with this huge action sequence at the end. Do you guys think you could have done an episode this big early on, or is this something that like over time you feel like you've been able to refine?
Yeah, no, definitely not. Like I didn't know what I was doing at the beginning. I mean, I wasn't even using the stereo tracks properly at the start. That's something that I learned, which came in big handy in this arc with the Watchdogs, because I was able to keep the Watchdogs on the left channel and the underdogs on the right channel, so that you always know who's talking and where they are.
Wait till we remix this for 7.1 audio. It's gonna be awesome. How many channels? Oh my god, it's gonna be great.
But no, absolutely not. I've learned so much as I've gone along. I've become more confident. I've taken bigger risks and bigger chances, both like in the scripting place and then in the sound design as a result. I'm just like a lot more confident on that side of things. That being said, there are many times in which I get very frustrated with writer me because there's a line in the next episode in that script that is literally like, and then this happens. Good luck, future Scott. And I curse my past self, but then I figure it out, and I'm always pretty happy with how it turns out. So
I don't think you get enough credit for all of the sound design work that you do on this. Like I open up some of these because I do the final, like just the volume mix on stuff, but looking at the number of tracks that he puts in, or like to get technical, like you'll take a sound effects track and you'll have like 2 sound effects tracks in most episodes, but you've got 30 different sound effects weaving in and out, and the volumes are all automated and they're panning left to right, they're fading, they're being extended or looped or like crossfaded. Like there's a lot of stuff going on in those episodes before they even get to me, and it's you do a whole other person's job on top of all the other jobs you already do.
Yeah.
You do it very, very well.
I'm really tired. Yeah, no, I'm really happy with the sound design work this year. Like this is the first time that I feel like I've really met my own expectations in terms of like what I want this show to sound like. So I'm just really, really happy with how this season has been turning out. So yeah.
So before we close out here, I like to have a moment for people to be able to give shout outs to anybody who had a great contribution to this episode who's maybe not in the room right now. So do any of you have anybody you want to call out that also worked on this episode?
I mean, Zach was like my favorite.
He's everybody's favorite.
Joel, the whole British rock star thing, I couldn't get enough of it. I was like, I want to hear more.
I really, really liked writing so Carelli gave me the directive of like, oh, when they're having all these transformations, like maybe like little bits of musical cues for each one. And I don't know that you wanted me to do it as deliberately as I did it, but literally each person got like a 5-second like independent theme, and getting the guitars and the bass down for Joel's and just doing my best like Sex Pistols was a lot of fun.
Zach recorded all of those at my place, and he was very self-conscious because he is not super confident with his British accent, and I was like, no, it does. But the thing that made him feel better was like, no, man, we wrote you an out. Charlie says the British accent is terrible, so no matter what you do, you're fine. And then that, like, he was like, oh, and then he opened up and then did the thing. It was a lot of fun.
Secret superstar for the whole run of the show, like just so
Seriously.
good.
Yeah. The fact that he started off as just like a one-off character in the pilot of Elliot's boss, and that was all he was supposed to do, and we just loved his interpretation of that character so much we just kept bringing him back over and over again, and now he's just part of the squad.
Morgan, I feel like spinoff Joel, Max, and Mindy just go start like a burger shop in like rural Idaho. Yeah. I'm down.
I would absolutely listen to that.
Yeah, Joel sleeps in the freezer. You know.
I enjoyed Christina's little boy voice.
Oh, young David.
For David, yes. Yeah.
That was
in the score along with it, like the little kids song in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, that was great. I love Simon as a Dracula, specifically a Dracula.
I'm not the Dracula.
That whole bit, that made me laugh harder than anything while I was writing. Like, I was in tears, like laughing at Cosmo being like, is this what the dry erase board's for? You know, like, just like as we were writing that, I just thought like, this is the funniest thing. Like, it just tickled me so much. The idea of him giving exposition while sounding like a Dracula was just so funny to me. And then I also I want to shout out in general. I have a really funny story to share. So obviously we didn't really talk about her in our last episode, but Naomi is so good in this arc, and her sort of like tete-a-tete with Billy and this sort of like ongoing conversation they have throughout this. And the performance is so good, and you might be hopefully it all plays perfectly and no one noticed anything. But in the original script, there was no Billy and Lorelai totally transform into wacky characters, and the character that we came up with for Lorelai was Quint from Jaws, and she was going to become Quint from Jaws, and she had like a monologue that was like a take on the whole like scratching on the chalkboard moment from Jaws, and it was this whole thing. But the problem was either Naomi had never seen Jaws, or was completely unfamiliar with the character or the accent or and she tried her damnedest, but she could not get this to work. And she was like, I'm like literally crying because I can't get this to sound good, and I'm so sorry, I'm such a failure, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, it's our fault, we wrote you something insane, and didn't ask you first. And also Billy turned into a leprechaun. That was the thing. He was a leprechaun, and she was Quint from Jaws, and a little leprechaun.
Then, like, I don't know, we'll turn into a leprechaun or blah, blah, blah.
Or Quint from Jaws. Yeah. So that was, so basically I had Nick re-record something, re-record that line, and then just move on with the conversation. And I think it turned out flawlessly. Yeah. But originally, that was the case. And, I just want to, compliment Naomi for trying her hardest to do this thing. And she is so good in this.
She is so good.
Yeah, and there's an episode coming up that might be her finest hour. And I am so excited for everyone to hear that. It is also her doing a mild impression. And I'm so excited for everyone to hear that, because I think she's amazing in that episode. And I think she's amazing in every episode. And Naomi, it's not your fault that you couldn't do an impression of Quint from Jaws.
I feel like here's the thing, though, right? We've all gotten so used to Naomi just consistently knocking it out of the park. Like, she's here. I'm raising my hand above the viewing area of the screen. And like the rest of us are kind of like upper Midland, but she's always at like 110. She's so good in everything she does that I feel I personally probably take it for granted more often than not.
Even
that she's just like,
I'm like, how is she killing this right now? It's a
and in every aspect, the comedy, the patho, like everything, she's just so like, everyone's good. Like I could say it about everyone, but like Naomi is like, I don't know. My hat's off to her. And I always like Chris O'Connor is just another one who's just like, I don't think the dude's ever like had acting training, but he's just such a natural in the role. Like these roles are these people. I can't separate them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Naomi's doing an accent. That's the other thing. I forget that's not her natural accent.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. The talent.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry for trying to make you be Quint from Jaws, Naomi.
Could have made her the shark.
Yeah. What would that sound like?
Stay tuned. I would have loved to write the music for Lorelai as Quint.
Yeah.
The Jaws theme somehow.
It's just
yeah.
right.
Yeah. Actually, I can pull it up and read the original scene if you guys want to hear what that.
You have to
originally
do it
sounded
in the
like.
accent.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am not going to do the accent. That
in
is-
Naomi's accent, doing Lorelai's accent, doing Quint's
That
accent.
is, you know what? I feel permission to give myself to not do that because if Naomi can't do it, I certainly can't. Okay, so all right, so. The scene, Billy says, crap. Lorelai's like, what is it? And Billy says he's doing it again. In the episode, he was like, go push that button over there. And then she does. And then he's like, yeah, well, good. We just missed it. Well, the energy wave hits the building. There's silence for a beat. Billy's tiny scream as he plops on the ground. And then in a leprechaun voice, Billy says, oh, right in the Blarney Stones. Wait, why did I say that like that? Better get a look at myself here in the, oh, great, I'm a wee leprechaun. Nathan, you bastard. I got the little green hat and everything. Is it always going to be Billy Medina, Lord, that you cast your wrath upon? And then there's nails on a chalkboard, and Lorelai says, well, now, the way I see it, you can cut nature straight down the middle, Chief. On one end, you got big, them's with the tigers and the sharks and the lions, and then on the other end, you got small. And Billy boy, the way I see it, I'm on one end and you're on the other end, the boot stomping end. And Billy says, oh, I'm shaking in fright. What are you fixing to do, Lorelai? Throw a light beer can at me? And Lorelai says, no, I figure one good stomp of me boot ought to do it, Chief. With that, I get the head, I get the body, I get the whole damn thing. And Billy says, right, before you do that, would you mind hitting the switch over there? And then she does, and then they turn back to normal. So yeah. So that was the original version of the scene, and obviously those are two quite meaty little mini monologues for Naomi, and it was just way too difficult. But so there you go. I think the episode turns out amazingly well without it. So anyway,
It's fine.
Any other closing thoughts on this very awesome, very weird episode?
This is one of the very few times I printed out all the sheet music for all of Making It Weird, and I like put it into a proper like score. So like my goal at some point is to assemble like a small pit band and play this whole thing live.
Ooh,
Yes.
Yeah, it's out there.
That's so cool. When the musical premieres on Broadway.
I did that for
Right.
the Underdog Battle Hymn as well, so maybe we'll do a 1-2 punch.
That'd be really cool.
Wait,
actually.
Geek By Night should be a musical.
It absolutely.
Scott said,
Every other form of media.
Yeah. Well,
oh God.
Give it
I
10
remember
years.
how hard the one song was. You all might have forgotten. I have not.
In my
I'll never
spin-off
forget.
dreams.
Yeah. Anyway.
I had fun. It was a fun one.
Yeah.
It sounds like you guys had fun. Honestly, that just really comes through. Like it's, in the final span of episodes for a show, you'd think that like they would be completely occupied with closing out things and closing it all up, but you guys really took some time, just have a good time and enjoy these characters some more and really, really play in it and live with it. And it really comes out.
Well, I mean, for me, this season was all about one, wrapping up the story. But also, I have long had a checklist of things that I have wanted to do in this show. And, one of them was a musical episode. One was like a wacky variant episode. And somehow we found a way to do both of those in one episode while pushing the plot forward. So I will kind of be forever amazed at how well this season gets put together, because to be honest, when we get to the end of this, there's nothing left in the tank. Like I feel like I got my entire wish list done. And that is that feels like a huge accomplishment, and I am so happy that everyone is going on this journey with us. And that all of my collaborators have been so supportive with the long waits and everything, and all of the work that we put into this. It's been a ride, and we're just getting started, because this season is nuts, and it's just going to get crazier. So maybe not crazier than this episode, but yeah.
It's all up to interpretation anyway.
Yes.
What your version of crazy is.
Very true.
Scott, is there any part of you that's like, when the audio series ends, where you're like, I still think it could be a TV show?
I mean, well, look, yes, but I also think as a society, I don't think Geek by Night is a thing that could ever be on TV now, because why would anyone watch a show about made up superheroes when they could watch a show with like Daredevil in it? It's
Daredevil doesn't sing.
Yeah, well, that's true. But yeah, I don't think anyone would want it, to be perfectly honest. As much as I would love that, and I would totally do it. I just don't foresee it being something that I could bring to the world, unfortunately. Not right now. Like when we created this show, it was like pre-Heroes, I think. Back in like 2006, 2007.
Jesus.
So yeah, like that was like a perfect time. It was like, well, we can't make a real superhero show, so let's have this, this one.
It'll come back around.
Yeah, hopefully one day. Yeah.
There's a market for wholesome The Boys.
Yes.
There's the elevator pitch.
There it is. It's The Boys, but wholesome.
It's like Full House and The Boys together.
All right. Well, I want to thank my guests so much for coming on today. Scott Carelli, Scott Tofte, Morgan Spencer, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you to all of you, the fans, the underdogs, for listening today. If you'd like to support the show, please join the Dueling Genre Patreon at duelinggenre.com/support. You'll also get access to classic Geek by Night episodes, scripts, and other behind-the-scenes materials, as well as bonus content from some of Dueling Genre's best shows, including weekly episodes of Dueling Genre Tonight. You can also tell your friends, families, and followers to subscribe to Geek by Night on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you are listening to this right now. Finally, if you like our show, please leave a positive rating for us on iTunes. Thank you so much for going beyond Geek by Night with us. Have a super day.